In a sequencing lab, a single sample of saliva from a man in eastern Tennessee is broken down into its raw genetic code. His family had told the same story for as long as anyone could remember. Somewhere far back up the line, they said, there was Viking blood. The scientists running the test were not looking for Vikings. They were tracing the Y-chromosome, the genetic thread that passes from father to son, unbroken across thousands of years. And when the markers came back, they pointed to a place the family stories had never mentioned. Not a longship, not a raider standing on a beach. They pointed to a cold northern plain, almost 3,000 years before the first Viking was ever born. To understand why that single result matters so much, you first have to understand the test itself, because it is not the kind most people take. The familiar ancestry kits estimate percentages from your whole genome, a blend of every line that fed into you. The Y chromosome is different. It is the one piece of DNA that passes only from father to son, and crucially, it barely changes from one generation to the next. It does not shuffle and recombine the way the rest of your DNA does. A man carries very nearly the same Y chromosome his great-great-grandfather carried, and the one his ancestor carried 2,000 years before that. Think of it as a genetic surname, written in chemistry, handed down the male line for hundreds of generations without ever being diluted. When geneticists want to follow one specific bloodline deep into the past, this is the thread they pull. Over many thousands of years, that thread does pick up tiny, harmless changes. A single letter of the code shifting here and there. Geneticists use those changes like mile markers. Men who share the same set of markers belong to the same branch of the family tree, what scientists call a haplogroup, and the deeper the shared marker, the older the common ancestor. By reading which markers a man carries and in what order they accumulated, a laboratory can place his father line on a map of human history that reaches back tens of thousands of years. And in the Tennessee sample, the markers placed him on a branch that led somewhere no one in his family had ever expected. This man's ancestors belonged to one of the most distinctive migrations in American history. Between 1717 and 1775, roughly 250,000 people left the province of Ulster in the north of Ireland and crossed the Atlantic to the American colonies. They are remembered today as the Scots-Irish. They came ashore in the ports of Pennsylvania, then pushed south and west, down the Great Wagon Road into the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, into the backcountry of the Carolinas, and finally into the steep hollows and forested ridges of Appalachia. They were farmers, weavers, and Presbyterian dissenters, hard people from a hard border country who built cabins where the land was too rough for anyone else to want it. Their road to America had been a long one before they ever saw the Atlantic. Most of their own grandparents had themselves been migrants. Lowland Scots resettled into the north of Ireland during the plantation of Ulster in the 1600s, planted there by the English crown on land taken from the native Irish. They were never fully at home in Ulster. Rising rents, poor harvests, and religious restrictions pushed them out again within a few generations, and they left in waves, sometimes whole congregations boarding the same ship with their minister. And almost every family among them carried some version of the same belief, repeated around the fire and written in the front of old Bibles, that their bloodline ran back to the Norsemen who once raided these coasts. For a long time, that belief seemed perfectly reasonable. The Vikings really did reach Ireland, Scotland, and the north of England. They founded the city of Dublin. They settled York and ruled much of northern England. So when a Scots-Irish American sends a cheek swab to a laboratory and the report comes back mentioning Scandinavian ancestry, the old story appears to confirm itself. But the version you have heard is not the full picture. Because over the last decade, 4 peer-reviewed genetic studies took that comfortable family legend apart and rebuilt it into something far older and far stranger than anyone sitting in those Appalachian cabins could have imagined. The first crack came from a study published in the journal Nature in the year 2020. A team led by the geneticist Margaryan sequenced 442 ancient human genomes from across the Viking world, bones recovered from graves in Scandinavia, Britain, Ireland, Greenland, and beyond. It remains the largest study of Viking Age DNA ever attempted, a continent-wide excavation of the dead carried out with sequencing machines instead of shovels. And what the team found was not a sudden, mysterious people who appeared out of nowhere to terrorize medieval Europe. What they found was continuity. The DNA of the Viking Age Scandinavians ran in an unbroken line backward through the Iron Age, through what archaeologists call the Vendel period, approximately 550 to 790 AD, and back further still into the Nordic Bronze Age, the long stretch between 1700 and 500 BC, when these northern people raised burial mounds across the landscape and traded amber down into the heart of Europe. The Vendel period is worth pausing on because it is the world that produced the Vikings without yet being Viking. These were the centuries of the great ship burials, of ornate helmets and warrior aristocracies in what is now central Sweden, the society later mythologized in the poem Beowulf. The men buried in those Vendel graves carried the same Y-chromosome lineages as the raiders who would follow them 2 centuries later. There was no genetic break between them. The Vikings did not replace the people who came before. They simply were those people, a little later, with long ships. Put plainly, the genetic signature we casually call Viking had already been sitting in Scandinavia for thousands of years before a single man picked up an axe and went raiding. This is the point where the entire idea of Viking ancestry begins to come apart in your hands. The word Viking does not describe a race, and it does not describe a bloodline. It describes an activity, and a brief one at that. The Viking Age is usually measured from the raid on the island monastery of Lindisfarne in 793 AD to the Norman conquest of England in 1066. That window is 273 years, less than 3 centuries. But the genetic stream those raiders rose out of had already been flowing through the fjords and pine forests of Scandinavia for nearly 3,000 years before Lindisfarne. The Vikings were not the headwaters of that bloodline. They were one chapter near the very end of a story that was already ancient when they began. So if the Vikings were only a late episode, the obvious question becomes where the bloodline actually started. A second study, also published in Nature, answered it. In 2015, a team led by Morten Allentoft, Martin Sikora, and Eske Willerslev followed the thread all the way back to its source. They traced a vast migration that swept out of the grasslands of the Eurasian steppe, a people archaeologists know as the corded war culture, and in the north by another name, the battle axe culture, named for the polished stone axe heads they buried alongside their dead. Around 2800 BC, these people moved into Scandinavia, and they never left. This was one of the largest population movements in European prehistory. These steppe herders, mobile, cattle-keeping, and organized around the male line, swept westward and northward across the continent and reshaped its genetics permanently. In much of northern Europe, the men already living there were largely replaced on the male line within a few generations, their Y-chromosomes vanishing from the record while the newcomers' lineages spread. The blunt arithmetic of that replacement is why so many modern European men, from Ireland to the Baltic, share descent from this single steppe-derived source. In Scandinavia, that source became the foundation stock of everything that followed. The study identified two specific markers carried on their Y-chromosome, labeled in the technical notation as R1AL448 and R1AZ284. Those two markers are, in effect, the genetic fingerprint of pre-Viking Scandinavia, stamped into the male line more than 4,500 years ago. And here is the detail almost everyone has missed. Those same markers survive, intact, and recognizable in modern British and Scots-Irish men walking around today. But this was no longer just a story about Scandinavia. That same Bronze Age stream had already reached the island of Ireland long before the Viking Age, and the proof of it came from Dublin itself. In 2016, a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, led by Laura Cassidy at Trinity College Dublin, sequenced ancient genomes recovered from Irish soil, including remains thousands of years old. The team found that the modern Irish and Scots-Irish genome already carries direct Scandinavian admixture dating to the Bronze Age, roughly 2,000 years before the Viking Age even began. That northern ancestry did not step off a longship in the 8th century. It arrived along the old Atlantic seaboard, the network of prehistoric sea routes that linked Scandinavia, the British Isles, and the western coast of Ireland in an age before writing, before Rome, before anyone had drawn a map. Those roots are easy to forget because we tend to picture the ancient world as a place of isolated tribes who never traveled. The reality was the opposite. For thousands of years, the western coasts of Europe were stitched together by seafarers moving copper, tin, gold, and people up and down the Atlantic in small boats, hugging the shoreline from Scandinavia to Scotland to Ireland and down to Iberia. Genes moved along those same currents. The Scandinavian signal that Cassidy's team found in ancient Irish bones was not the trace of an invasion. It was the residue of ordinary contact, trade, and migration along a maritime highway that was already old when the Egyptians were building tombs. People assumed they understood exactly how Nordic blood reached Ireland. They were wrong by 2 full millennia. By the time we reached the Iron Age, this northern population had organized itself into peoples whose names survive in the records of Roman and Greek writers. There were the Svir and the Gotar, the 2 great tribes of what is now Sweden, names that still echo in the very words Sweden and Gothland. There were the Herulls, a roving warrior people who fought as far south as the Mediterranean. There were the Scyrii, an ancient Germanic tribe of the Baltic coast. These tribes were the direct descendants of those battle-axe migrants, and at the same time, the direct ancestors of the men we would later call Vikings. The same Y-chromosome markers run straight through all of them, generation after generation, like a single unbroken cord pulled through centuries. And those markers, as the next study would show, did not stay quietly in Scandinavia. If you are finding this worth your time, consider subscribing. This channel traces the deep ancestry buried beneath American family trees, one bloodline at a time. By the 1700s, those northern markers had already spread across a very specific and very revealing map of Britain. A study in the journal Current Biology in 2003, led by Christian Capelli, carried out what amounted to a genetic census of the British Isles, sampling men from town after town to chart where the old Scandinavian Y chromosomes still lingered. Later work by the geneticists Brian McAvoy and Daniel Bradley refined the picture further. Together, they mapped exactly where these pre-Viking Scandinavian markers were most heavily concentrated. The answer was Yorkshire, Lancashire, Cumbria, the Scottish lowlands, and the province of Ulster. Now look closely at that list and hold it in your mind, because those are the precise regions that, only a few generations later, emptied their populations across the Atlantic into colonial America. Now the full chain finally comes into view, and every link in it is documented. It begins with a battle-axe people walking into Scandinavia around 2800 BC, carrying those Y chromosome markers. Their descendants become the Iron Age Svir and Gotar. Out of that same northern stock come the Viking raiders, who cross the North Sea and settle the north of England and the lowlands of Scotland. Then, in 1066, the Normans themselves descended from Norse settlers who had taken root in France, conquer England, and add yet another layer of the very same northern blood. Over the following centuries, lowland Scots are resettled across the narrow sea into Ulster during the Great Plantation of the 1600s. And from Ulster, between 1717 and 1775, that hardened population sets sail for Pennsylvania and walks south into the mountains of Virginia and the Carolinas. 5 distinct moments, scattered across nearly 5,000 years of history. One continuous genetic thread running through all of them. You can still see that thread in the surnames it left scattered behind it. Names like Smith, Johnson, Anderson, Wilson, Thompson, and Erickson fill the church registers and weathered headstones of the Appalachian backcountry. A great many of them are patronymics, names built directly from a father's name. Son of John, son of Anders, son of Eric. That naming custom itself is Norse in origin, a habit carried across the water along with the blood. And the Y chromosomes carried by many of the men bearing these names trace back, link by link, through that entire chain to the Iron Age tribes of Scandinavia, and beyond even them to the battle-axe people of the Deep Bronze Age. The name and the chromosome traveled together, father to son, for longer than most written history. This is not guesswork. Over the last 20 years, tens of thousands of men have submitted their Y-chromosome to surname DNA projects, volunteer studies that gather everyone who shares a family name and compare their markers side by side. Again and again, men with the same Appalachian surname turn out to share the same deep paternal lineage, and that lineage points back to the north of Britain and beyond it to Scandinavia. A Wilson in Tennessee and a Wilson in the hills of Cumbria often carry the same ancient signature, separated by an ocean and 300 years, joined by a single unbroken chain of fathers. The paper trail of genealogy usually runs dry after a few centuries. The chromosome does not. It keeps going, straight back into prehistory. Which brings us all the way back to the man in Tennessee and the story his family told around the fire. They were almost right, and at the same time, completely wrong. He does carry Scandinavian DNA. There was never any doubt about that. But he is not descended from the Vikings. And this next part is the whole point. So it is worth slowing down for. He is descended from the people who became the Vikings. The bloodline written into his cells is older than the longship, older than the raids, older than the word Viking itself by nearly 3,000 years. The Vikings were not his ancestors handing a proud legacy down to him. They were distant cousins, one branch of the same ancient family tree, who simply happened to spend 273 years raiding instead of farming. The label Viking was painted onto a single late phase of a genetic stream that had already been running since the Stone Age. It changes how you look at the legend once you understand it. The pride those Appalachian families took in their supposed Viking blood was, in a sense, pride in the wrong ancestor. The raiders of Lindisfarne were the loud, late, famous cousins of the actual source. The real ancestors were quieter and far older. The herders and farmers and toolmakers who carried the lineage north in the first place and then held on to it, generation after generation, through 3,000 years of weather and war, before any of their descendants ever thought to raise a sail and frighten a monastery. The family was telling a true story. They had simply credited the wrong people and missed the deeper one by 3,000 years. And the sheer scale of it is the part that is hardest to absorb. When you lay the regional maps from these studies on top of one another, a striking figure emerges. A modern American who carries an old Yorkshire, Lancashire, or Ulster surname has, on the male line, roughly a 1 in 2 chance of direct descent from a Scandinavian tribe that existed 2,000 years before the first longship was ever built, not descent from a Viking. Descent from the ancestors of the Vikings. That means half the men in those families are carrying in the one chromosome that never recombines and never dilutes. A signature that was already stamped into Northern Europe before the pyramids at Giza had even begun to weather. So the saliva sample in that Tennessee laboratory told the truth after all, just not the truth the family was expecting. The Viking story was never wrong about the blood. It was only wrong about the timing and about who came first. Long before there were Vikings to admire or to fear, there were quiet Bronze Age herders standing on a cold northern plain, carrying a thread that would go on to survive almost everything. The fall of Rome, the age of raids, the Norman invasion, the plantation of Ulster, the crossing of an entire ocean. That thread is still here, written into the cells of farmers and truck drivers and grandmothers across the hills of Appalachia, most of whom have no idea that the oldest thing about them is also the most ordinary. A name passed quietly from a father to a son to a son for 5,000 years. If you want to keep following these buried bloodlines back to where they truly begin, stay with the channel. There are far older stories than this one still waiting inside the data.